Good morning. Good morning, members of the committee. It's Monday. Members of the public, thank you for joining us this morning, and those joining us via Zoom, good morning. We'll go ahead and call House Labor, Health, and Social Services to order. Bless you. Mr. Caldwell, if you would call the roll.
Representative Clausen.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Here.
Representative Heft. Representative Ottman.
Here.
Representative McCann. Here. Representative Stivar. Representative Wasserberger. Representative Yen. Chairman Rodriguez Williams. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm going to quickly run through our rules, our committee rules. Members of the public and committee members, please keep your phones on silent, and any voice activated devices, turn them off as well if you have an Alexa or anything like that. That would be appreciated. Although it might seem an awkward formality, the speakers will address their comments and questions to the chairman, not to individual committee members or to others in attendance. This helps us avoid personalities and comments of a personal nature. Comments will be directed to the issue under discussion by the committee. Distracting comments on unrelated side issues are out of order. Speakers will avoid personal criticism, ridicule, or name calling directed at anyone else in attendance at the meeting. This includes comments of a personal nature directed at other speakers, audience members, or members of the committee. For audience members, we expect you'll refrain from any behavior that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Specifically, the rules prohibit speaking out loud when another person is talking, carrying on loud and distracting side conversations, any shouting, clapping, booing in response to any speaker's comments. Our general guidelines are very simple. We just ask that everyone conducts themselves in a civil and respectful manner at all times during the meeting. So ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, we did have to carry over a bill from our last meeting, and we left off with public comment on that bill. This morning we have 4 bills total on the agenda. We'll start off with Senate File 125, defining healthcare and protecting the people's welfare. Then we'll move on to Senate File 158, virtual credit cards and network leasing, dental services. We'll proceed to Senate File 187, Public Employee Retirement Plan, and then Senate File 167, Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Criminal History Records. So that's the order that we'll start in. With Senate File 125, the bill sponsor did have to attend another committee meeting to present a different bill, so she's unable to join us. But again, we'll pick up with public comment. And then just so you're aware, members of the committee, I do too have a bill that I've sponsored that I have to present in another committee meeting. And that committee meeting starts at 7:30. So I'll be here and then turn the chair over to Vice Chair Ottman for that. Good morning, Representative Yen. All right, so I'll move or place Senate File 125 back on the table. Mr. Caldwell will pick up with public comment. So any members of the public, we had a few that testified last time. We invite you to come forward, registered lobbyists, government agencies. We've got 3 chairs up here. I welcome you to come forward. Good morning. If you would please state your name and who you're with, and we'll hear your take on the bill.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Bill Winnie, I'm from Sublette County. I'm here for myself. This bill is a pretty simple bill. It seeks, as I see it, to turn around what I would have we've had a few years recently of what I would have called newspeak, where you try to change the meaning of things. As I've looked at the issue of abortion as health care, certainly there are cases where it is. We hear a lot about ectopic pregnancies, and there are other complications that can take the life of the mother pretty doggone quickly. But what do you do about a normal, on-track, uncomplicated pregnancy? As I look at things, we ought to take our glasses off and turn them around and look at it from the perspective of the child and ask the child, of course it can't answer, do you think it's health care? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. And so I consider it the height of hubris for those in the medical profession to call an elective abortion with an on-schedule, on-track, uncomplicated situation healthcare. And I believe that's what this bill seeks to set right, and I support the bill. Subject to your questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winnie. Committee, any questions of Mr. Winnie? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us this morning. Again, folks, if you plan on testifying on this bill, please come forward. We've got a few empty chairs. Good morning. Please state your name and who you're with and your take on the bill.
Good morning. My name is Linda Burt. I'm with Wyoming Right to Choose. We oppose this bill, basically, number one, because it's an unnecessary bill, and we can see that because the trigger mechanism on this is after the court makes a decision. At this point in time, the definition of abortion is health care under the Wyoming court system, the district court system. And basically, a definition can be clarified by the legislature. The legislature, I don't believe, has the ability or the power to actually change something into something it is not. The entire medical world understands that abortion is health care. The court understands at this point in time that abortion is health care. So there's a couple of problems. The other problem is in terms of telling the court how it can interpret something in the law. The Wyoming Constitution protects the separation of powers under Article 2, Section 1, and that says that one department of government cannot properly exercise the power of another department of government. Interpretation of the law is primarily the institution of the court and the priority of the court. So the legislature can't do this. It can certainly say this in a bill, but again, this bill is unnecessary because, number one, the court is not going to take notice of that because that's not the legislator's job. And number two, that decision is going to be made by the Supreme Court of Wyoming. So this bill is unnecessary. I think it's just restating again what this legislature has, at least parts of this legislature have said over and over again, is that abortion is not health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Burt? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us. Please. Good morning. Please state your name and who you're with, and we'll hear your take on the bill.
Drake Hill on behalf of Honor Wyoming. I just wanted to point out quickly to the committee that Senator Steinmetz, with whom I believe the chairman has spoken this morning, I've spoken to, has offered up a amendment to 125 that I would hope as a matter of order you might take up. I'm cognizant of the time constraints of the honorable chairwoman and that you have to leave at 7:30. So I'm feeling the urgency of pointing out the amendment and in fairness to the public that maybe they don't know about the sponsor's amendment. So I would leave it at that, and I would reserve, if it's all right with the chair and ultimately with Representative Ottman, if the chair gets turned over to her, that I'd be allowed to speak to the amendment.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none.
Madam Chairman, do we have that language in front of us anywhere? No.
Yeah, so committee members, when we work the bill, it looks like there's a couple of proposed amendments. And then again, we have a technical one that LSO has provided as well. So, okay. Any further members of the public? Anybody online, Mr. Caldwell? Okay. Seeing none, I will close public comment on Senate File 125. Committee, what is your pleasure? Bill's been moved by Representative McCann, seconded by Representative Guggemos. Amendments and discussion on Senate File 125. Representative Hoft.
The only other amendment that I would like to offer up was that upon adoption, instead of waiting for the court to overturn the case, I would offer an amendment on page 5 that would, upon adoption, go in immediately upon adoption. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Heft,
Bill needs to be moved.
the bill's been moved and seconded. Yep, we're on
Is
amendments.
that a motion?
Is that okay, so Representative Heft is moved. Repeat your amendment, please, just for clarity.
That on bill page 5, that instead of waiting for the effective date of March 12th or earlier, that upon adoption, that this would go into effect immediately.
Okay, Mr. Caldwell, do you have that?
And to clarify, this would be the end of page 2?
It's gotta be based on the blue sheet.
It's on the amended version.
That should be,
So we're,
Representative Heft, that should
so we're looking at the engrossed copy that came to us, which is the
Right.
blue sheet.
Right.
And in that case, it would be Representative Heft, page 2, and you're looking at line 9, requesting to change the date of effectiveness from March 12th, 2026 to effective immediately? Am I correct, or?
Correct.
Okay,
and just to clarify, that would essentially be striking from page, or line 9 onwards, and just replacing it with the standard language for effective immediately.
Correct.
okay. Committee understand that one? Okay. All right. The amendment's been moved by Representative Heft and seconded by Representative Gugelmas. Discussion on the amendment. Representative Gugelmas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you just explain your reasoning for that, please?
Representative Heft.
Madam Chairwoman and Representative Gugelmas, we don't know when we're going to get to that case. You know, when it's going to be read. You know, doing it, I don't see any reason to wait. That would be my only reason.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Klauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question to the bringer of the amendment and to the committee is, by doing this, do we in any way jeopardize the upcoming case? Is kind of what we had seen previously.
Representative Heft or anybody, the bill sponsor, welcome to come up, Senator. Not sure if you heard the question.
I did. Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chairman.
Senator
I'm on my way
Steinmetz.
to another meeting as well, but I wanted to pop in and I can tell you the reasoning in the Senate. The reason the trigger was put in the bill is because we are concerned about that as well, that we might restart another court case and be in litigation another 2 to 4 or however long years, which is not what we were hoping to accomplish. And so that's the reason for the 2 dates. 1, we would be back in session and we could reevaluate where we're at. Or 2, the trigger date if the court makes a ruling. So that was the reason for that amendment. And it is to your discretion whether you agree with us or not.
Further discussion on the amendment. Representative Heft.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. I've made a mistake. I thought that we were addressing Senator Steinmetz's amendment to the bill. Would you like to withdraw? I will withdraw my amendment.
Okay, so the amendment moved by Representative Heft has been withdrawn. Committee, I will move the LSO technical correction amendment at this time. You should all have a handout of it. The proposed amendment is on page 1, line 1, after relating to, insert the Wyoming Constitution. On page 1, line 3, delete providing findings specifying exceptions. So that's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Gugamas. So Mr. Caldwell does have a copy of that. Discussion on the amendment. Question being called by Representative Yin by a voice vote and a show of hands. All those in favor of Chairman Rodriguez Williams' amendment, please state aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that amendment has passed. Further amendments, further discussion on the bill. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the amendment that's been placed in front of us. Basically adding the language starting on page 1, line 12, and then carrying on through the end, which is the first part of it's mainly just putting in definitions and or construction and definitions. If there's any discussion on any particular part, I'd be happy to elaborate.
Okay, so there's an amendment moved by Representative McCann. Is there a second? Second by Representative Gugamas. Discussion on the amendment. Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, so I wish the public could see this because I'm actually very confused about what it actually does. We have this section, so section 1 is adding a new section in our green books or statute. And then we have this section 2 definitions : I don't know where this is going. I mean, I guess it would be session law because it would be passed, but it's not, it doesn't appear to be editing any statute. It's just a section 2, similar to our section 3. So is the intent of this just to go into session law for that section 2 and the section 3?
Thank you, Representative Yin. We'll defer to the bill sponsor, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And LSO would have to draft that. All that is, that what you have in front of you is the statutory references that were in the Senate bill, that this is just them typed out and adding the legislative findings and definitions that were associated with them. So it's very clear exactly what everything says. So that's what it is. It's the statutory references elaborated for clarification of exactly what we're doing. Because this is going into a different section of law. Remember, this is Wyoming common law and statutes of construction in the green books, and so that's where it would go. And it's a fairly short section if you've read that area of law. And I think there are others in the room that could give you the reasoning behind that. So with that, Madam Chairman, I better be off to my committee too, but I appreciate all the hard work on this bill and leave it to your capable hands to see how we can best get it through the whole process. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Committee, further discussion on the amendment. Follow-up, Representative Yin?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, thank you. So, I mean, I'm thinking that your assumption is, or your intent of the amendment is just to copy all of the stuff from the previous statute into here rather than just be a reference. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Senator. All right. Committee, further discussion on the amendment or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, question being called by Representative McCann. All those in favor of Representative McCann's amendment by a show of hands and a voice vote, please state aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that amendment has passed, and Mr. Caldwell does have a copy of that. Committee, further amendments, further discussion on the bill.
Madam Chair.
Representative Yen.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I think the amendment hasn't changed anything from Mr. Hill's testimony from last week. I think the bill still doesn't do anything. If anything, now we're just copying the same language from one place in our green books into another place, like we've done with many other bills. So just cluttering everything up, so I'm not sure what the point is. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Committee, further discussion. Representative Heft.
Because of the good representative's comment, to make this work immediately, so we've adopted Senator Steinmetz's amendment, and we would add to that to make this immediate rather than a delay waiting for the court case. That would be the difference in this bill. So I'd make the motion that instead of waiting for the court, that we would, upon adoption, that this would go into effect.
Okay, so there is a motion by Representative Heft to make the bill effective immediately. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative McCann. Discussion on Representative Heft's amendment. Representative Klauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I understand the reasoning for wanting to do this, but after sitting through this previously where we passed a bill that delayed or actually ended our last court case, based on the bringer's testimony, she has the same fear, so I'll have to vote no against this.
Further discussion on the amendment? On the amendment that Representative Heft just meant to change the date. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not familiar with what the good representative's talking about. Could you elaborate a little bit, please?
Representative Klauston.
What happened?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. So previously, we had another case in front of the courts dealing with abortion, and then we passed another law following that, which negated the court case that was in progress. So we kind of had to restart the whole process. So kind of a 2-year change, and that's what the senator is referring to. She's afraid if we pass this immediately, we may negate what's going on right now.
Committee, further discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none. By a voice vote and a show of hands, all those in favor of Representative Hoff's amendment to change the effective date of the bill to immediately, please state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let's do that over again. I need a show of hands. All those in favor of Representative Heff's motion by a show of hands and a voice vote, please state aye.
Aye.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that has failed. That amendment has failed. Committee, further amendments, further discussion on Senate File 125. Okay, seeing none, sensing the urge to vote. Mr. Caldwell, if you'd call the roll on Senate File 125.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 125 as amended. Representative Klauston.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann. Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Stivor. Representative Wasserberger. Representative Yen.
No.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams. Madam Chairman, that is 7 aye, 1 no, and 1 excused.
Okay, Senate File 125 has passed. We'll ask the senator to carry that bill onto the floor. Committee will move on to Senate File 158, virtual credit cards and network leasing dental services. This bill is sponsored by Senator Jones. Good morning. Welcome, Senator Jones.
Good morning, Madam Chairman.
Good morning. If you would walk us through your bill, tell us
I
about your
certainly
bill.
will. This SF 158 establishes a new section of the insurance code to regulate the relationships between the dental industry and insurance companies. So basically, this bill is to help Wyoming dentists. They are small businesses, and they can elect to receive payments from insurance providers without bearing the associated administrative burden, and in some instances, the financial cost of accepting virtual credit card payments. 28 states have enacted similar legislation addressing the virtual credit card payments. A virtual credit card is a credit card payment that is a reimbursement payment provided to dentists by insurance providers that requires a transaction fee that is borne by the dentist. This practice results in a 3 to 5% loss by the dentist. And I'll also tell you what network leasing is. Network leasing is when one network insurance provider leases access to their network to a third-party insurance provider. This bill provides explicit notification to the dentist and an opt-out right for Wyoming dentists when a network they participate in is leased to a third party at a profit to the insurance provider. As a result of this bill, dental practices are no longer forced to solely accept a payment method that might come with a fee as much as 5%. Section 1 of the bill just goes over definitions. Definitions for commissioner, contracting entity, a covered person, dental care provider, dental care service plan, dental care services, the dental carrier, the dentist agent, the network contract, what a third party is, and then a virtual credit card. The next section just provides the language that allows a contracting entity to grant third-party access to a network contract or the associated in-network fee schedule. This legislation outlines 10 elements that govern granting access to a third party. So those 10 elements are that 1, the dentist must initially choose to allow access to their network service process and the rates at the time of that contract. 2, it provides that the dentist can contract directly with a third party. 3, it provides the right for the dentist to opt out of third-party network leasing agreements. 4, requires third parties to comply with all networks, contract terms and conditions. 5 requires that the contracting entity provides all participating third parties in writing. 6 requires a contracting entity to update the third-party list every 90 days on their website. 7 requires a 30-day notification before leasing to a new third party. 8 requires specific guidance for payments from the network contract provider. 9 specifies access to the network when a contract is terminated. And 10 requires disclosing the contract entity's network contract to the dentist. The next section goes over about protecting the dentist opting out from being dropped by the network insurance provider. It also provides an affiliate exemption for providers doing business under the same brand. It states that a dentist is not required to provide services to a third party in violation of this section. It gives virtual credit card language that prohibits contracts from requiring electronic payments to be accepted by the dentists. Outlines the duty of the insurance provider if a dentist accepts a virtual credit card payment. It notifies the dentist of any fees that could come along with accepting that credit card payment. And it also informs the dentist of additional payment forms that they could opt to. This bill also requires that once a dentist opts out of a virtual credit card payment, the insurance provider must continue to provide reimbursements in the manner that the dentist have selected. And it provides for compliance with existing federal regulations. And then it authorizes the rulemaking, and the effective date is July 1st of 2025. That's pretty much the whole bill, but basically it's just on how the dentist and the insurance companies can work together and not add additional costs to the dentist for if they don't want virtual credit cards or a different payment method.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Committee, any questions of Senator Jones regarding her bill? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for being here. I really like this bill. Do any other professions have a similar bill?
Senator Jones.
I'm sorry, I am not aware of it. I'm not positive if they do or not.
Committee, additional questions? Vice Chair Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Jones, I would like to know who prompted this bill, and is it the dentists themselves, or is it the insurance company? And basically, is it just because of a payment method that's changing? I assumed that they could take credit cards before.
Senator Jones.
Madam Chairman, Representative Ottman, this bill was brought forward by the dentists, but also the insurance companies have worked in conjunction with them to provide the bill that you have in front of you right now. The issue was brought by the dentist, though, because they are sometimes forced into getting these electronic payments, and then they have to get a 3 to 5% loss on the amounts that are due to them.
Further questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us. Will you be sticking around?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, are there any, we'll go ahead and open up to public comment. Are there any government agencies that would like to testify? We're on Senate File 158. Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up to public comment. Members of the public, there's 3 chairs up here. Come on up and good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning. If whoever wants to go first, if you'd state your name and we'll hear your take on the bill.
Certainly, Madam Chair, Nick Agopian. I represent the Wyoming Dental Association. I have the honor today of introducing to you Dr. Erica Tonso, a Riverton native and a partner in a dental practice here in Cheyenne and current board president for the Wyoming Dental Association. So with that, I'll turn over the discussion of the bill and the bill's need. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you, Madam
morning.
Chair and committee members.
Can you state your name again?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Erica Tonso. I am a dentist that has been practicing in Cheyenne, Wyoming for 13 years, and I am currently the president for the Wyoming Dental Association. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here to testify on behalf of Bill 158. The first part of this bill pertains to network leasing. A practicing dentist makes an educated decision if they want to enter into a contract with an insurance company to become an in-network provider. Items like the fee schedule can be negotiated and agreed upon. As it stands, particularly with smaller insurance companies, they have the ability to lease the pre-negotiated agreement to the other PPO networks where the terms of the agreement can be changed and fee schedules can be lowered without the consent or knowledge of the dentist. The dentist does not have the ability to consider, negotiate, accept, or reject the terms of the new agreement. Network leasing happens silently. There is no notification to the dentist or to the patient. If I have a patient that's in need of an implant, this is a long and expensive process that can sometimes take a year to finish. During the planning phase, we discussed the process of the procedure, but we also discussed the potential out-of-pocket costs the patient may incur. I lost my place. If the patient's insurance company leases the agreement and the fee schedule has changed, the patient could potentially owe more money at the end of treatment. This can sometimes be the difference of a few hundred or a few $1,000s. This erodes the trust in the dentist and the patient relationship. Patients need to be able to trust that their dentist is being forthright with information regarding any and all treatment options. The second part of this bill is pertaining to virtual credit cards. Insurance companies can sometimes determine and limit the method of payment a dentist receives for procedures performed on a patient. The current trend for majority of insurance companies is with virtual credit cards. While payments are received quicker, each payment comes with a 3 to 5% processing fee. This drops the pre-negotiated fee with those insurance companies even further. The majority of insurance companies have started defaulting to this form of payment, whether a contract is in place or not. If my office wants to change the method of payment, the insurance companies have not adequately informed our offices of how to make that change. Sometimes my staff will need to spend up to 5 hours on the phone with multiple people from just one insurance company to change the method of payment. On average, my office makes a request to change the method of payment 3 times a week. This is costing my office approximately $350 a week, as well as taking my staff's time away from other important tasks. Insurance companies also have the right to default back to virtual credit card payments without limitations. Oftentimes, they will default 2 or 3 months later back to virtual credit cards, requiring my staff to request a different method of payment repeatedly for a single insurance company. Both aspects of this bill allow for more transparency between insurance and the dentist, creating the opportunity for a dentist to have more accurate information to help educate patients and allow for a more trustworthy relationship. Thank you for listening to my testimony today.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of the good dentist? Representative Klauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony, Doctor. To either one of you, do you know, are any other health professions using this type of law?
Doctor, or?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware, certainly not. It's my understanding from reading the current statutes, it's not required in the ACA requirements at the federal level. I don't believe Wyoming does, but I would stand corrected. And certainly there's no other provisions in Wyoming statute that speak to it specific to dental insurance. And I'm not sure in other states.
Thank you. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a PA, so I'm familiar with the problems of insurance, and it's certainly a pain. Does this bill do everything you want it to do?
At the current thank you, Madam Chair. At the current present time, with what is being proceeded with throughout the nation in other states, yes. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President, or excuse me, Madam Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Wilkinson. I am here on behalf of Delta Dental of Wyoming, along with Patty Guzman, to comment on the bill.
Madam Chairman, I'm Patty Guzman. I am the Vice President at Delta Dental of Wyoming. And Delta Dental of Wyoming is the oldest and largest dental insurance carrier in the state of Wyoming, and we stand in support of this bill. Delta Dental of Wyoming does not pay our dentists that are in our network, or even dentists that are outside of our network, with virtual credit cards, and we do not lease our network. And so we wanted just to come up and let you know that we stand in support of this bill, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other public comment? Anyone on the Zoom? Okay, committee, what's your pleasure? Move the bill. By McCann. Second. I always forget. Wasserberger. Okay, any discussion? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. A couple years ago, this committee sat down and we came up with goals when dealing with medical issues, decrease administrative burden, improve efficiencies, stabilize and improve reimbursements, and then work with all parties to try to accomplish these goals. I think this bill really does that. I'm really thinking that we need to probably take this bill and spread it across our other providers, not just the dentist, because all of our healthcare providers are going through the same issue. So thank you to those that brought this. I think this is a real solution for us.
Any other comments, committee? Okay.
Question.
Okay. Okay, question. All in favor of Senator Jones's motion that this bill be passed, please, can we just do?
Can we do a roll call? Call the roll.
Okay, call the roll, please.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 158. Representative Clouston,
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss,
Aye.
Representative Heft, Representative McCann, Representative Ottman,
Aye.
Representative Stivar,
Excused.
Representative Wasserberger, Representative Yen,
Aye.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Excused.
Madam Vice Chairman, that is 6 aye, 1 no, and 2 excused.
Thank you.
Senator, do you have someone who is going to carry it on the floor? Do you know of, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, the next bill that is on the table for consideration is Senate File 187. Okay, is the sponsor here?
Senator Hicks, does anyone have Senator Hicks's number?
No.
Did Senator Hicks provide someone who was going to present it? No. Madam Chairman, do we want to delay it or stand at ease? So we do have another bill that we could do while waiting for him.
Let's, committee, would it be your pleasure to go to Senate File 167, Board of Chiropractic Examiners? Also, is there a presenter here for Senate File 167? No.
So maybe, Madam Chairman, we just stand at ease for 5 minutes until we can find sponsors of these two bills? Mr. Schwartz, are you presenting either of these two bills by chance? No? Just commenting, I'm sure.
We'll give the runner 5 minutes to see if we have anybody. They may have thought this other bill was going faster. So 5 minutes, please. We'll be back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Word on the street is the bill in front of me is also missing a sponsor this time, so I came in to see if I could slip in and do some time with you.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Senator Dockstader.
Okay.
Okay, committee, we have Senate File 167. Senator Dockstader, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee of bringing Board of Chiropractic Examiners critical history records. Madam Chair and the board, this bill has a specific purpose of protecting the public from those who might mistreat their health care programs. On the application for the license in the state of Wyoming, it asks about criminal history and convictions. This is specific to the Board of Chiropractors. There is currently no way for the board to verify if someone has a criminal history that would prevent them from getting a license and seeing patients. The board has to take the person's word for it, essentially. Also, if there's an investigation for disciplinary action on a license, this would allow the board to check and make sure that there are no criminal issues that would cause a licensee to lose or have a suspended license to practice chiropractic care. This really is about keeping good players in the practice and preventing others that may have lost a license in another state due to a criminal issue to come and make their way into our Wyoming system inappropriately. We've had a few issues, I'm told, by the board, and over the years, they're looking for a way to remedy this issue. So they brought it with this legislation. Madam Chair, I'll just go over it if that's okay at this point. Page 1 allows background checks, the investigations, and the disciplinary action. Page 2 regards the information to the chiropractic board when they receive the information and when they're applying for a license. That covers that part of it. Page 3 is the fingerprinting on written request. Page 4, request information on criminal history. Request for the fingerprinting again, and the history and the fingerprinting continues out on page 4. Page 5 calls for the disciplinary action. It applies to initial applicants, promulgates the rules, and has the effective date of July 1st, 2025. Madam Chair, I would note the authorizing board of chiropractic examiners, this authorizes them to do it, take care of the criminal background checks, and there are no additional expenses anticipated with this. At this point, I'm told by the board there are 36 states that require criminal background checks. They're simply asking for an opportunity to run the system a little tighter. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you for coming and presenting this bill to us today. I'm just curious, what got the conversation started to get this bill going? Has there been a couple issues with people having criminal history that had gotten a license for chiropractic? What exactly got this started?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Wasserberger. They did not give me specifics, but their emphasis with me, with telling me that they would like to have a template in place that they can make sure they got a professional system up and ready to go. Well, it is, it's doing professional level. They want the template in place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Committee? Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Senator. Just a quick question. I'm actually running something similar that has to do with background checks. My understanding that can take up to a year to get in place. Is this already in place, or? I mean, I'm just looking at your effective date and some of the information that I have. That might not happen.
Madam Chair, Representative McCann, I don't know the exact time on background checks, to be honest with you, but this puts it in place, and so everything after that date would become effective.
Okay.
Representative Clauston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And just to follow up on that, as I hire a new provider, they have to do this. I mean, I had to do this 32 years ago for physical therapy. I'm shocked this is not in place for our chiropractors with the care and the personal touch that they provide. So we do it. We know within a few days if they've passed the background check or not.
A follow-up, Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's what I've heard, but getting this in place, getting it set up with the FBI and all that, from my understanding, can take up to a year, that's the trouble I've been having running with the bill that I'm having. That's why we had to go to interim, or one of the reasons we had to go to interim was because of that. So it's just, the effective date just triggered that thought, that's all. Thanks.
Any other questions, committee?
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you,
if I could
Senator.
just conclude and get out of your way and see if there's anybody to testify. Madam Chair, in committee, this authorizes the board to have access to criminal records, licenses the applications that are subject to investigation, allows for disciplinary action, come before the chiropractic board, allows for the fingerprinting, seeking the necessary applicants in 36 states as noted. Have this in the process now. Appreciate the committee's consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Hey, are there any government agencies here? Okay. Please state your name and who you're with.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Emily Crombaugh. I'm the Executive Director for the Wyoming Board of Chiropractic Examiners. If I may, I would just like to speak to a couple of the questions received. First, Madam Chair.
Please.
To Representative Wasserberger, there have been several instances where we've received applications for the state. They have marked no to all of the disciplinary questions we ask, but then we learn from other state jurisdictions that they've been suspended, that there's criminal violations. There's been several instances of sexual misconduct not disclosed to our board. And that is what's prompted the board to take a stronger stance on working towards this goal.
Any questions for Ms. Cromwell? Thank you for your testimony. You'll be close.
If I may, one more.
Yes, please.
To Representative McCann, there are concerns with how long the FBI does take to grant authority. We've had a couple of boards take anywhere from 8 months to, I think, about maybe 2 years for another. With that in mind, we were curious if the committee may be willing to extend the effective date of the bill for another year.
Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you. So I'm just reading here, effective date July 1st, 2025. You'd want it to be 2026 if we were to amend it.
Ms. Cromwell.
Madam Chair, thank you. Representative Wasserberger, yes, potentially. I regret we don't have a better solution for working around the FBI timeframe, and this was something we thought may be the easiest.
Madam
Representative
Chairman.
McCann. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if we necessarily need to change the effective date per se. I just don't know if the system will be set up in order to be able to get that done by this time. I think this is fine, I would believe. You just might not be able to do it or start it until all that's in place. Once it's in place, then it becomes a little bit quicker, but from my understanding, it takes a while just dealing with the FBI to get it in place. So I don't know if you necessarily need to change the effective date. It's just that I wanted to know if anyone found a quicker way to do it, is what my reasoning behind my question. So thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Cromwell.
The concern is when the bill goes into effect, we cannot issue a license to a chiropractor without obtaining the background check. And the concern is to hold up licensure for an indefinite period of time while we wait for the FBI to proceed with their approval.
Representative Yen.
Madam Chairman, sorry, what's your name again?
Emily Cronbaugh.
Ms. Cronbaugh. Maybe as an alternative on page 4, so I think this is the only real shall that requires the actual access. So on page 4, line 2, it's the board shall request criminal history. What if we just prepended starting on July 1st, 2026, the board shall? And so that way you can still get the fingerprints and everything else beforehand. Would that work?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Crombaugh.
Yes. Representative Yen, thank you for your question. I think that could be a reasonable solution. I'm open to whatever the committee feels is best. It was just a concern we weren't quite sure how to correct.
Do we have any comments from the sponsor on that? Senator? Thank you. Representative Clauston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you, Ms. Cronbaugh. I'm just curious, visiting with maybe the FBI or setting these up, and to Representative McCann's, if we do this for all these other professions, we do it for firearms, all kinds of background checks, CNAs even, doing home health. Any explanation why it would take so long to add chiropractors to that system?
Ms. Crombaugh.
Madam Chair, thank you. Representative Clauston, I don't have an idea. We do administer multiple boards in our professional licensing board office under A&I, and several have recently sought background check authority. Without great understanding, the stumbling block does continue to be the length of time for FBI background check. I do have Joanne Reed, she's the administrator for our office. I don't know if she might have more insight, she is here, but we can't really explain. We've had a couple license holders in previous boards reach out to their congressmen and women asking for help expediting the FBI process, to no avail.
Any other questions? Representative Clauston.
So, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. I had the same thought. We probably need to reach out to our congressional delegation, and maybe the current administration, they seem to get things done faster than previous, so maybe now's a good time to get this done, so.
Any other government agencies? Thank you. No. Is there any public comment? Anyone wanting to comment on this? No? Okay. Do we have anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, committee.
Move the bill, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Okay, Senate File 167, moved by Representative Yin, seconded by Representative McCann. Any discussion?
Madam Chairman.
Representative Yin.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion on page 4, line 2. After B, insert starting on July 1st, 2026.
Second.
Amendment by Representative Yin to put starting on July 1st, 2026 on page 4, line 2.
So, Madam Chairman,
Let me see, who seconded?
I did.
Okay, seconded by Representative Klauston. Discussion, Representative Yin.
yeah, Madam Chairman, so this would still grant the authority to the board to do all criminal history investigation and still require those fingerprints when applying for licensure. So whenever they get the access to the system, they'll be able to make those background checks on their own. And then starting on July 1st, they shall be requesting the criminal background checks for every new licensure as well. So I think that's a satisfactory solution to the timeline problem.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, sensing the urge to vote, please say aye if you're in favor of this. Aye. Okay, all opposed, nay? Okay, bill has passed the committee.
Question on the bill.
Oh, that was on the amendment, thank you. Question on the, question's been called. Okay, roll call.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 167 as amended. Representative Klauston.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann. Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Stivar.
Excused.
Representative Wasserberger. Representative Yen.
Aye.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Excused.
Madam Chairman, that is 7 aye, 2 excused.
Senate File 187. Senator Hicks. Okay, please state your name and we'll hear what you have to say.
Senator Hicks, Senate District 11, for all those you are not familiar with the central part of Wyoming where nobody lives. It's the largest Senate district in the lower 48. It includes about 20% of the state of Wyoming. Madam Chairman, you're familiar with that corner of the state. We kind of bump up against each other a little bit up there on the county line. We have I have more antelope in my district than I have people. So big chunk of real estate in Wyoming covers most of the checkerboard. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Hope you had a good weekend. If you were coming back, you probably got blown all the way down here to Cheyenne like some of us did. But Madam Chairman, I bring you Senate File 187, Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions. And so, Madam Chairman and members of the committee, just give you a little background on this bill. And while we're here today, this is a piece of legislation. This was a Joint Appropriations Committee bill last year. There was two pieces of what we will call retirement reform legislation passed last year. One of those, both of them were passed out by both bodies. One of them was an actuarially defined contribution plan. Basically, we're moving to a model versus periodically the legislature looking at it. It automatically calculates what those employee contributions are. We passed that out. The governor signed that into law. It was the wisdom of the Joint Appropriations Committee, and I think it was good public policy to try to jumpstart that process. So they passed another piece of legislation, which was now Senate File 187. That was vetoed by the governor. And what that was intended to do is to start to move that plan towards actuarially soundness. And so when we talk about actuarially soundness, usually that's a 30-year horizon. Currently, I can't speak today where we're at, but the latest estimate, if you go on to the Wyoming retirement systems, it's about 78% actuarially sound. And so what does 78% look like? And I've got pulled up, Madam Chairman, I've got the latest. You can go onto the website and pull up the latest GASB on this, the Government Accounting Statement of the Board report that talks about the financial liabilities and all that stuff. So the latest report was it was the end of last year, but based on that report, we were about 78% actuarially sound. In real dollars, what that means, it means we're $2.3 billion short of funding the retirement program. Let me repeat that, $2.3 billion. That's if we were at 100% actuarially sound, if there was enough money in the account to cover all the liabilities. The liability, and let me remind you, that liability is the legislature's liability. Doesn't belong to any other branch of government, doesn't belong to the executive branch of the judicial. It's our responsibility to make sure that the plan is sound. We're moving in that direction, but we have a $2.3 billion liability at 78%. One of the unique things about the Public Employees Retirement Plan is, and this has innately been one of the problems in the past, is 70% of all payout is based on investment income, 30% contributions. So when you have a really good year, like we did last year, it can change that a little bit, but we're highly reliant upon investment income. And we've done a lot of things. The Retirement Board has done an outstanding job to move that in a very positive direction. But in my time in the legislature, in 15 years, we're probably as high as we've ever been actuarially soundness for the Public Employees Retirement Plan. It just kind of bounced around that high 70s for well over a decade. And so that was part of the reason to try to move this towards an actuarially defined contribution plan, but also was good public policy. The legislature thought so last year to say, let's jumpstart this thing, let's move this in the right direction. And so they passed out. And it requires, and I'll just walk through the bill real quick, Madam Chairman. The only thing the bill does is it says there'll be a 0.25% increase in the public employees' contribution out of their paycheck, and 0.25% as the employer. And they'll see most of the money, if you go back to the fiscal note, most of the biggest liability we have is the public school employees. And so when you look at that, it's a $1.7 million contribution out of the general fund. That covers all state employees, a $3.4 million contribution out of the school foundation program. That's all those K through 12 employees around the state. The intent was to jumpstart this thing and start to move it in a positive direction sooner than later. It will still get us there at 30 years. One of the things that you're probably going to hear in some of the testimony is, well, it's not a bad time. It's not a good time to increase the employees' contribution. It's 0.25%. Because this was vetoed, it would only be for 1 year. It does jumpstart the plan. My conversations with the CIO, the Chief Investment Officer of the Wyoming Retirement System, he says, anytime we can add money to the program, because it's all about investment earnings, 70%, helps us. But it also helps those employees versus going to next year when this other one kicks in, having another contribution. And it kind of levels that playing field out. So there's some other information out there. I did not bring it, Madam Chairman, is this to say, well, why would we do this, inflation and all this stuff. I would just remind this committee that the last 2 years in a row, we've given our state employees raises. And so if you look at a percentage of their salary versus a percentage of what they contribute, it's actually lower now than it has been in a couple of years because we have raised those salaries the last 2 years. So it's not like it's a big additional burden on those employees because we've given them raises. As now we're saying 1 year, one time, you're going to increase your contribution by 1/4%. And that will go from, currently it's 9.62, it'll go up to 9.62. Will be the contribution from the employer and 9.37 from the employee. That is a 1/4% increase in 1 year. Madam Chairman, the reason I brought this bill, it was good public policy last year. When we passed this out, it's still good public policy. It moves the plan a little closer towards, will get us there a little quicker. It levels that out for those employees. And so to that end, one thing I would like to share with you, Madam Chairman, is just anytime we talk about actuarially signage, we're talking about a 30-year horizon. So, past performance doesn't dictate future returns. And so one of the things this summer, I had asked our budget and fiscal staff and then our chief investment officer with the treasurer's office is Wyoming used to maintain a AAA rating with Standard & Poor's, who rate every government, every major business around the world. So one of the things, we had lost our AAA rating about 5 or 6 years ago. So one of the things I had asked is our chief budget officer, Mr. Richards, to work with Mr. Fleming at Treasury and work with S&P and say, what are those things that we could do as a state of Wyoming to try to get that AAA rating back? We don't bond. The University of Wyoming has got some bonds out there, but it's an important from a credit rating state, and I think it's a reflection on us. And so we should always try to strive to be the best of the best. And within that S&P report, and I'll just highlight it, they actually talk about the actuarially defined contributions as a very good thing. And they also talked about the retirement program, and with the Jump Start was a very positive thing that the legislature did. But probably the most important thing, and it gets back to trying to just move this thing quicker, faster, is they said the pension liabilities will be manageable over the medium term. They didn't say the long term. There's still that lingering, we're moving in the right direction. Our pension's manageable in the short and the medium term. But we start to get out there, and it gets back to those investment returns. We've just come through a stock market post-COVID now that has had double-digit returns for a number of years. And so it looks really good right now. But if we go into any type of recession or anything like that, and it will change that trajectory, or based on the actuarially defined contributions, will actually require employees to contribute a significant more out of their paychecks. And so, Madam Chairman, this is not the most significant bill we're going to deal with, but I would just remind the committee that $2.3 billion liability belongs to the legislature. Anything we can do to improve that and move it in the right direction, those funds will actually increase those investment returns to help move us in the right direction. So with that, Madam Chairman, I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you. Questions for the Senator Committee? Representative Clauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this. Just a couple questions, and I don't know if these are for you or maybe for somebody from the department, but we're short $2.3 billion. Do we know how much is in the Wyoming retirement system?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that the director has those numbers and he can provide those. It's in the, I'll let him, but it's in the billions.
Okay. 2 follow-ups, please.
Follow-up, Representative Clauston.
Thank you. Just a little curious. So when I look at this, the firefighters are at 2.5% less than the rest of the state employees. Do you know the history on that? Why it looks like employer and employee contributions are 2.5% less than everyone else.
So, Madam Chairman, there is a number of retirement plans, and so this is what we call the big plan, the public employees. In other words, it has the most. I believe I've got the numbers here, number of employees in the large plan, retirees that are currently is roughly 31,000. Inactive, non-retired members, those state employees currently working is only 27,000. So there's more people. But we have the judicial retirement system as different level of contribution. You have highway patrol and law enforcement's a different retirement, and then there's at least 2 fireman plans. A couple of years ago, we had to bail out Fireman A, which, because we were that was a little, I believe, $50 million bailout because that plan was not actuarially, in fact, it was about broke. And so the other fireman plan, so each one of those has a different level of contribution. They have different levels of actuarially soundness depending on where they're at. The one that we looked at just most recently, law enforcement's probably headed in the wrong directions. I think there's some efforts to change that. So I can't give you the entire history of with the firefighter plan, but based on those contributions and who contributes to those, some of those are going to come from those local government employers, not out of the state. Each one of those is just a little bit different in their actuarially soundness where they're at. And I know we've worked on that when I was on appropriations. We spent a lot of time trying to move these plans in that direction. I know that doesn't answer your question, but there's a number of plans out there with different rates of contribution. Like law enforcement, it's 20 years till they're eligible to retire and start receiving benefits under that plan. And so each one of them's a little bit different.
More questions, committee?
Yeah.
Representative Ian?
Madam Chairman, thank you. Senator Hicks. Do you think that the chief executive may exercise his power? So I was looking through the message again, and it seems like that he didn't want to give essentially a take-home cut when we weren't really raising their salaries at all. So curious on what your thoughts on what may happen if we do pass this through.
So, Madam Chairman, if you go into the report on the website, it actually has a graph on there and shows percentage of contribution relative to an employee's salary. And what that shows is actually after the raises that we've given the last couple of years, it's actually a little bit less than it has been on a number of years. That, in other words, their contribution was much higher as a percentage of their salary than it is today. And so I understand the chief executive's concern, but again, this was good public policy a year ago. It's the legislature's liability associated with funding the pension plan. It's just something that I think that we should have, I disagreed with the chief executive last year, and I still disagree with the chief executive. It's our liability, and so certainly he has the authority and the opportunity to exercise the veto pen again this year, but I think that this body, being the legislature, given our $2.3 billion liability, should advance good public policy. And I think, Madam Chairman, this is good public policy. So I hope that answers your question, Representative Young.
Any more questions? Representative Gugemaz.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This might be a stupid question, but what was the response from the people last time this was passed? Is this something they look at favorably? Or do you have any idea on that?
Madam Chairman, I can answer that from a number of different ways. One is first as an individual that's on the big plan. I work for a local government and we contribute to that. So my first answer is it would sure be nice to know going forward that we have a sound retirement system for, again, we have more people on the plan than are working. And so it's all about investment returns. 70% comes from investment returns, and we need to get that up there to that 100%. The other side of that equation is I'm no different than you guys. I have a lot of government employees in my district, and they always come to me. And particularly for you newer members, you're going to hear, we haven't had a COLA. We haven't had a cost of living increase in our retirement plan. We haven't had a cost of living, and you're going to hear that over and over and over again. And quite frankly, we can't. This actuarially plan that moves us out to 30 years to be 100%, or even if we change the trajectory and we hit there at 28 years, does not include a COLA. Until you get to 100%, it would be almost irresponsible to give a cost of living increase. And so the answer to the question is yeah, we need to make some contributions, make sure that the plan is sound, and maybe sometime, let's assume we get another 5 years of great investment returns. The best thing that would happen is then that plan would be solid actuarially and financially, that we could actually give those 31,000 people out there a cost of living increase. What you run into is fundamentally two people, or differences is where you're in life. When you get younger and you're a new employee, most of them just want the money right now. Keep in mind, this is their money. We're just saying, we're going to set this aside for you. You're going to get to spend this money later out, but you're also driving those 70% investment returns to make sure you've got a good retirement plan. You may absolutely have some time out in the future a COLA, but younger people tend to want money now. And so when you talk to those younger employees, it's all about, I need, car payments, all this stuff. It's their money. We're just saying we're going to invest it so you've got a sound retirement plan. Employees are a little bit later in life and are looking out there saying, yeah, I want to make sure that that money's available. And if there's some opportunity out in the future for a COLA, I'd sure like to see that. So it depends on where you're at in the spectrum of your 30-year career with employment. And so, but that's just different perspectives that I've heard out there over the years from public employees. And again, clearly, I'm a member of this plan, and I'm at the later end of the side saying, I want to make sure that for the next 20 years that I'll probably draw on the plan, that it's actuarially sound, and maybe way out into the future, we can afford a COLA. Hope that answered your question, Representative.
Questions, committee? Thank you, Senator. Are you going to be able to stay for a little while?
Thank you, Madam.
Okay, do we have any government agencies that would like to testify on this bill? Okay, please state your name and who you're with.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. I'm David Swindell. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Retirement System. This is Senate File 187. I provided a handout to the committee. I sent it electronically, but I also believe a hard copy has been distributed to you. The Retirement Board does not have a position on the bill. My purpose here is to provide information and answer questions. The issue is essentially, as the Senator mentioned, it's a timing issue. As a result of House Bill 83 passed last year by the legislature, rates in the public employee plan are going to go up by about 100 basis points. They're going to go up, according to the mechanism, probably 50 basis points in 1 July 2026, and another 50 basis points in 1 July 2028. The mechanism says you measure in the odd numbered years, here 2025, and then we will provide notice, and the rates will go up 1 July in the even numbered year, in this case 2026. We're about 100 basis points, actually 113 basis points, off where we need to be for the actuarially determined contribution rate, which is to fully fund the system in accordance with the funding policy. In other words, get there on time. And so rates are going to go up. This bill, as the bill sponsor mentioned, is a jumpstart. It would start early. I would call this a manual adjustment. It would adjust 50 basis points in 2025, evenly split between employers and employees. And what that means is that when the mechanism kicks in, you'll probably still have another 50 basis points in 2026. But in 2028, you might be there. In essence, we've estimated, and there's some numbers here, that by starting earlier and putting a little more money into the plan, in the end, the mechanism just has less work to do going forward. And eventually you reach a steady state rate after this 4 years of adjustments. And probably the steady state rate would be a little bit less if this bill were to become law. It's not a lot less, probably 6 basis points, and that would be evenly split between employers and employees. And so it's a classic case of a little more money now does save a little bit in the future, but the savings are spread out, so it's a policy choice. Beyond that, Madam Chairman, I'm here to answer any questions about the plan. One representative had a question about the fire contribution. Was that? We administer 8 defined benefit plans. 4 of them are for firefighters. We have volunteer firefighter, we have Fire A, we have Fire B, and we have Guard Fire. I think you're probably talking about Fire B, paid firefighters in the cities. 2.5%, I think you may be referring to the multiplier or the benefit. The benefit in the public employee plan in the Tier 2 is 2% of highest average salary for every year you work. So if you have an employee that's worked for 20 years, which is typical in the public employee plan, their retirement benefit will be roughly 40% of their highest average salary. In Fire B, the multiplier is 2.5%. And that's typical in a public safety plan because the intent is to provide a larger retirement benefit sooner because it facilitates that career pattern. We really don't want 65-year-old firefighters on the fire line. So they typically, it's kind of like the military, it's a young person's game, and that retirement plan facilitates that. It's part of plan design. Judges kind of work the opposite. You don't start as a judge at age 22. You enter that profession late in life, and there are elements of plan design and multipliers in the judge's plan that are different, just as the bill sponsor said.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So thank you for bringing this and explaining this. So when I look at this, the fiscal notes about 5.2, 5.3 to the state, and then that's matched by the employers or the employees as well. So we'll see a total fiscal note of 10.6 to the fund. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman, Representative Clausen, yes, we think this will provide an additional $10 million a year in contribution income to the plan. Another question I think was in the testimony, how much money does the retirement system manage right now? We're at $11.5 billion. But as the good senator said, to be fully funded, to have the present value of your future liabilities equal the present value of your assets, we're about $2.3 billion short. So eventually, we're gonna make that up over the next 23 years is the plan.
Madam Chair.
Follow-up?
Yes.
Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you again, Director. So when I hear 11.5 billion, and then I hear people say we have 30 billion in savings, is that 11.5 billion part of that 30 billion that the state of Wyoming manages, or is that a separate fund?
Madam Chairman, Representative Clausen, it's separate. Our $11.5 billion is in addition to the money that the treasurer manages.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you, Mr. Swindell, appreciate it. I think, so just to be clear on what the bill does, we passed that bill last year that would allow the rates to be increased essentially by you guys by an extra, well, according to the actuaries. According to the actuaries, a set amount every 2 years. And this is just making it so you can start from a higher point than we would have with the bill being written and the other bill being vetoed from last year. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman,
Swindell.
Representative Yin, yes, that's correct. It's the rates are going to go up by the same amount, but this starts it earlier. It's kind of a manual. I'll use this bill sponsor's term, a jump start, if you will. But it's a policy choice. There's near-term cost to employers and employees, and it has to be weighed against the longer-term benefits. So it's a classic policy choice.
Any other questions for Mr. Swindell? I have a question. looking at this with 30 years, you hear that a lot with different retirement programs in 30 years or whatever. When does that 30 years start, or is it ongoing all the time? And the other question that I have is that with the increase for the employers and employees, isn't that an increase that we're going to look at as far as more debt for the legislature, since we're the government employees and also pay the, or we pay the employees and the employer? So how does that figure out?
So the funding policy is a little complicated. Originally, like most retirement plans, the board had a rolling 30-year amortization policy. In other words, if you develop a unfunded liability, how fast are you going to catch it up? This state, like most retirement systems, were fully funded at the beginning of the century, or nearly so. But stock market declines kept lower contribution rates. Some promises were made to increase some benefits in some cases. And you wind up with not enough money, and you wind up with an unfunded liability. And so then you have to raise rates to catch up on that. So the amortization policy, or the funding policy, is the policy that the governing board establishes to say how fast we're going to catch it up. For example, if you wanted to catch it up in just 1 year, you need to write me a check for $2.3 billion. That's not reasonable. And so what you do is you have a funding policy. 30 years was the funding policy back in the day. That's probably not ideal. Most actuaries would say the ideal funding policy is you want to catch this up in about 15 to 20 years. As the bill sponsor said, you're running some financial risk out in the future. It's better to have more money in the bank if you do have a stock market crash and so on. Plus, you get into some intergenerational equity. Who's going to pay those higher rates? It's employers and employees over the next 20 years or 30 years. You start talking 30 years, you're really talking about that whole generation of employees. The new folks that are hired today are going to pay this for 30 years to pay my benefit. And you get into some intergenerational inequities. So you probably want to pay it off sooner than that. If you get much less than 15 years, it gets really expensive sometimes. And most states, like Wyoming, are kind of dealing with a legacy debt. So in 2018, the Retirement Board established a new funding policy. They said, all right, we'll take the legacy debt as it existed on 1 January 2018, and we're going to amortize that part over 30 years. Not ideal, but it's for affordability. Every year after that, there'll be gains and losses actuarially from the investment markets or maybe some plan experience. And they're going to be amortized over 20 years. Each one is a separate layer. So these days, the board has a policy of amortizing the legacy debt over 30 years. And now there's 23 years remaining. And then every subsequent year is amortized over 20 years, gain or loss. And those things are pretty much evened out, as one would expect. So right now, the funding policy is really for 23 years, because that's kind of what we're dealing with. And that funding policy was also adopted by the legislature as part of House Bill 83 last year. So now it's in statute. It's no longer just the board's funding policy. It's a little complicated on a Monday morning. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, that's fine. I ask because I know, I hear good things about the retirement system. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other government agencies? Please state your name and who you're with.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Betsy Anderson, and I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff and General Counsel for Governor Gordon. So for a few reasons, the governor does not believe we need this bill at this time. As the sponsor and Director Wendell explained, you passed the actuarially determined contribution rate plan last year. The ADC plan provides an objective basis for increasing contributions to get to full funding. Therefore, this bill is not needed, as passing this bill will not get us to full funding any earlier. The funding policy has a set date for full funding, and this bill does not change that date. Another concern is that we believe that employees are still trying to catch up from the significant inflation that we have experienced over the last few years, and which seems to stubbornly continue, as January's inflation rate was 3%. The governor and the legislature have done great work over the last 3 years to try to get employee salaries where they need to be so that we can retain and recruit good talent. But there's still more work to be done, as our employees are still paid below current market rates. We are using the 2022 market rate tables for our pay. I would also point out that the contribution to the retirement plan is a percentage. So as salaries go up, more money is taken out of paychecks and more money goes into the plan. So for employees, we feel like we do a lot of pushing and pulling, giving pay increases, but then increasing their benefit costs. So again, we believe that now is not the time to do this. And finally, there's another important issue as to the other employers that participate in the plan. The state is only 20% of the plan. 80% of the plan, as you see in the bill, appropriation for the University of Wyoming and local school districts, but it also includes counties and municipalities. One of the benefits of the ADC is that the employers and employees are provided some semblance of a notice. As the director explained, there's an analysis 1 year and the increase goes into effect the next year. So they have an opportunity to plan and budget for this. This bill does not allow them to plan for this increase. It goes into effect July 1st. And I will note, I think there are some of our employers that pay all of the employee portion. The state of Wyoming does not. It only pays a portion of the employee portion, but some of these employers actually pay all of it. So it would be a big hit to them. And I will note that many of our local communities that participate in the plan will most likely see a reduction of revenue this next fiscal year. So we prefer to stick with the ADC plan as it was passed last year. And therefore, we believe it best to keep the retirement contribution as is for now. And I am happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson, any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any other government agencies? No? Okay, any public comment? Please state your name. And
Good morning. I'm Bob McLaurin. I'm with the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. We represent the 99 cities and towns in the state. We are neutral on this bill. We appreciate the bringer of the bill, trying to keep the plan solvent. We all went through Fire Fund Day a couple of years ago, and that was pretty painful. But just the previous speaker sort of stole my thunder. But in addition to the hit on the employees, we are bracing for some revenue reductions with whichever tax bill comes out. So not doing this would give us more time to ease into this. And then the other thing I would tell you is if this bill is effective January 1st, they're doing their budgets now. The budgets have to be sent to the councils by May 15th and become effective July 1. So, but as I said previously, we appreciate the concern for the plan. As a member of the plan, I'm really appreciative of that. And just ask you to take those factors into consideration. But we are neutral on the bill at this point. Thank you.
Could you tell me your last name again?
McLaurin, McLaurin.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McLaurin?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public testimony? No? Any on Zoom? Okay, registered lobbyists.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Andy Schwartz. I represent the town of Jackson. We are officially neutral on this as well. I won't repeat the comments that you've heard about local governments from Mr. McLaurin. I can only add, Senator Hicks and I have argued about this issue for 4 years while we were on appropriations together. I think that's correct. Anyhow, so personally, fundamentally, I'm not in favor of this bill because I think it's unnecessary at this time. And I think it puts an added burden on local governments, particularly given the property tax discussions that are going on where their revenue streams are not as dependable as they might have been before. And many of the local governments pay both halves of the retirement. It's a benefit they give to their employees to make it easier to hire. So I am concerned about what the potential impact is to local governments, and I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Any questions? Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Mr. Schwartz, so just to be clear, the town's position is neutral on the bill?
Correct, Madam Chairman, Representative Yin. The town is neutral.
Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. Just curious if you heard from any of the smaller towns. I guess what I'm worried about is putting an increased burden maybe on some of our towns that don't have some of the resources that maybe Jackson or some of our other larger cities do.
Madam Chairman, Representative Clouston, I really can't speak to that. I don't represent them and I have not discussed it with them. If you want me to speculate, I can.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
Madam Chairwoman,
Representative Clouston.
I would enjoy some speculation from his experience.
Madam Chairman, Representative, well, speculating is what I did best in my legislative career. Yeah, I would speculate it's going to be tough for them. And it also ties into the ability to hire new employees and how you were able to adjust salaries and benefits and able to get new employees, which is increasingly difficult, I think, for many local governments. So this will be another obstacle. That would be my speculation.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Any other registered lobbyists? No? Okay. Committee, what's your pleasure? Yes. Oh, do you want to speak again?
Just as
Oh,
the
dear.
question came up,
Bringer of the bill?
Madam Chairman, just on the question of prognosticating on what the small towns may or may not think, as somebody that represents more small towns in the state of Wyoming, places like Medicine Bow, Hanna, Elk Mountain, Campment, Riverside, Baggs, Dixon, Bear Oil, Wamsutter. I'm not here to speak for those, but I do represent every one of those, and the concern is just as valid for a small town where you're a big town, is being able to make sure that we have a good, solid plan and we're moving in the right direction. And those do actually sometimes, attract and retain people in small towns, just having a retirement income is important to some of them. So it's just our obligation. And so, short-term pain for a long-term gain, Madam Chairman. It's right public policy. Thank you, but it's just speaking on the issue of somebody that does represent small towns.
Senator Hicks, I have a question. Senator?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Since we are promulgating, or whatever we're doing, prognosticating, no, I had this before and I thought maybe it would come up. When it was said about sometimes the county governments or whatever are paying both sides of that, how do you see that? And then also, because I'm not, I'm learning a lot about all of this, over the last few years. And what I'm wondering is when we talk about less employees than we do beneficiaries, does that look like, what is the answer to that? Does that mean that government has to keep growing so we keep getting employees? Or what is the 30-year outlook? Do you have an idea?
So, Madam Chairman, I think I know what you're asking me. From a standpoint so let's start with some entities supply, they pay the employees side of it. So a lot of times when budgets have been tough, what employers will do, they'll say, well, rather than give you a raise, we're going to pick up your contributions for your retirement. And so in effect, that's a raise because now you're not paying that 9% out of their salary. I'm not going to tell you that's good policy or bad policy, but then it does shift that burden on. And the reason a lot of times that local governments and entities will do that is it actually reduces. So if they just pick up your side of the retirement, if they increase your salary to compensate that, then they also have to pay the unemployment insurance, workman's comp, payroll taxes. So sometimes it's a way that a governmental entity can increase your contributions, but it doesn't increase their other, let's say, employment tax liabilities. And that's why you see sometimes they do that. Long-term, it tends never to work out very well, in my opinion, because you've just assumed this continually ongoing obligation. And this is, if we were at 100% actuarially sound, it's not a big deal, but I think the director did a good job talking about now we're playing catch up, folks. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I think so. Thank you. Okay. One more question?
One more question for the Senate. Yeah, one more question. So Senator.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Senator, I was looking at what we had done last year, and on the House side, we had kind of an interesting amendment to help lessen the burden on employees, where we would pay the employees' share for that extra bit. I'm guessing you would not be in favor of that, or would you be in favor of that? What are your thoughts on doing that?
So, Madam Chairman, Representative Yin, you see your body rejected that last year, or it would be in the bill today. And so, again, I think the policy that was adopted by the legislature last year was the right policy.
Thank you. Okay, close of audience participation. Okay, we'll go through the bill. Okay. All right, public employee retirement plan contributions, page 1. Yes.
Excuse me, Madam Vice Chairman, is there a motion for the?
I'll make a motion on the bill. Senate File 187.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second. Okay. Okay, motion by Representative Yin, second by Representative McCann. Okay, discussion now. Ready? Yeah, okay. Anything on page 1? Okay, page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to vote to get it out of committee because I think, I do think it's something that we should consider on the floor. It's been interesting to see how it fared last year. I think that, I voted against it in its final form without the employee covered part by the state. But I do think it's a good policy discussion to have on the floor, so happy to have it on the floor. I'll vote on the floor. I may vote it down on third reading, who knows? I'm not going to commit to that right now, but at least want to have that discussion on the floor. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Madam Chair.
Representative Clauston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Torn on this bill, several reasons. This is a $10 million increase to the fund, and it's an $11 billion fund. So we're 0.8–10,000%. And I'm not an actuarialist, so I'm just debating if that's really changes things to put burdens right now on these employees. And then I don't know what we're going to do with taxes and how that's going to affect these municipalities as well. So that worries me. The other thing that bothers me, and I don't know if there's really an answer here, but if I'm an employee in 2009, total contributions 11%. If I'm an employee now, 19%. We can't go back and change what we did in the past. I just feel like maybe today's people are paying for all of our former employees that are benefiting from this program. So I'm probably a no, just because I don't know what we're gonna do with taxes to these counties and cities. But I am torn because I'm a saver and I like to save money and put it away for the future. So you guys have, you're pulling at both of my, I guess, pulling at different things I look at.
Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I'm thinking about this is if we're 2.3 billion short on what we're expecting to fund this, and this is going to increase at 10 million, is that, are we going to really notice that on the books? Is just kind of, like you were saying, I'm just not sure how much of a significant impact that'll have to help solve the problem with the liability.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Representative Yin. All the more reason to take it upstairs and get some more people, get some brains involved. Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Question? Call the roll.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 187. Representative Clauston.
No.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann. Representative Ottman. Representative Stivar. Representative Wasserberger.
No.
Representative Yen.
Aye.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Excused.
Madam Vice Chairman, that is 4 aye, 3 no, and 2 excused.
Okay. Senator Hicks, do you have someone to carry it on the floor?
Madam Chairman, I was thinking about Representative Yin.
Thank you very much. Okay, committee, Chairman Rodriguez Williams will have to give us the information about the next meeting, but I think we are adjourned. No, anything else we need to do? Okay, you're okay? Okay.